Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're diving into the Mughal Empire, a vast and vibrant period of Indian history, and I'm joined by an expert who's going to help us navigate all of this.
Absolutely. And this deep dive isn't just for those studying for exams, but it's also for anyone curious about history, because this episode is packed with stories and insights that will give you a whole new perspective on India's past.
It's true. The Mughals left a lasting mark on India, and their influence can still be seen today in the art, architecture, language, and even the food we enjoy today.
It's amazing how their legacy lives on.
Before we get too far, let me remind you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of our future deep dives.
We appreciate your support. Now let's get into it.
Okay, so we're talking about an empire that ruled a significant part of the Indian subcontinent for centuries.
Yeah.
How did it all begin? Where did the Mughals come from?
Well, the story starts with a man named Babur.
Babur.
Yes, Babur. He was a descendant of both Timur and Genghis Khan.
Wow, talk about impressive lineage.
Right. He had his sights set on India, and in 1526 he clashed with the Lodi dynasty at the First Battle of Panipat.
Panipat, that name keeps popping up in Indian history.
It's a strategically important location, and this battle was a decisive turning point. Babur's victory marked the beginning of the Mughal dynasty in India.
So it wasn't just about brute force, right?
Yeah.
What led to Babur's victory?
Well, Babur was a brilliant military strategist. He used cannons, which were relatively new to India at the time, and his cavalry tactics were superior.
It seems like he was willing to adapt and use new technologies to his advantage. It sounds like he was a man of action, but I've also heard he was a scholar and a poet.
He was. He was a fascinating character. He wrote poetry and even left behind a detailed memoir called the Baburnama.
Baburnama.
Interesting. Yes, it gives us a personal glimpse into his thoughts, his ambitions, the challenges he faced establishing the empire. It's a reminder that the people who shaped history were complex individuals.
It's fascinating to get that personal perspective. So we have this scholar warrior who establishes the Mughal dynasty, but empires are like families. They have their ups and downs. Who came after Babur, and were they able to build on his legacy?
Well, Babur's son, Humayun, inherited the throne.
Humayun.
Yes, but unlike his father, Humayun faced serious challenges and wasn't as successful. He had a rocky reign.
I've read that he even lost the kingdom for a period of time. What went wrong for him?
A combination of factors. Humayun, while intelligent, lacked his father's military skills and political instincts. He faced rebellions and threats from rivals like Sher Shah Suri, who forced him out of India for a while.
So holding on to power was just as difficult as gaining it.
Exactly. It's a constant struggle.
But Humayun eventually regained the throne, right? Was he able to turn things around?
He did make a comeback, but his reign was short-lived. However, his son Akbar, well, he changed the game entirely.
Akbar. His name is almost synonymous with the Mughal Empire at its peak. He's known as a brilliant military leader, an administrator, and a champion of religious tolerance. What made him such a standout ruler?
Akbar was a visionary. He understood that true power wasn't just about military strength, but also about uniting the diverse people under his rule. He expanded the empire significantly, but his policies are what set him apart.
In what way?
Well, he abolished the jizya tax on non-Muslims, and he encouraged dialogue between different religious groups.
That was a radical move for that time period.
It was, and it fostered a sense of unity and contributed to a period of peace and prosperity.
It makes you think about the kind of leader he was. A shrewd politician, a genuine reformer, or maybe both. It's these complexities that make studying history so fascinating. So Akbar sets a high bar for Mughal rulers. Who came after him? Did they continue his legacy?
After Akbar, his son Jahangir took over. He inherited a vast and relatively stable empire. He's known for consolidating his father's gains, but his personal life was also quite fascinating.
Oh, how so?
Well, his wife Nur Jahan was a powerful figure in his court.
Now that's interesting. Women wielding significant influence in the 17th century wasn't exactly common. What was her role?
She was intelligent, politically astute, and had considerable influence. Some historians even say she was the real power behind the throne.
Wow, that's incredible. Her story sounds like it's straight out of a historical drama. So we have Jahangir, the consolidator, influenced by the remarkable Nur Jahan, who comes next in line.
Next is Shah Jahan, a name synonymous with grandeur, architectural marvels, and a love story for the ages.
Ah, Shah Jahan, the Taj Mahal. It's an iconic structure that's known worldwide.
Exactly. But he was responsible for more than just the Taj Mahal. Shah Jahan's reign is considered the golden age of Mughal architecture. The Red Fort in Delhi, the Jama Masjid, one of India's largest mosques, and many other architectural wonders were built during his reign.
He definitely had a vision for grandeur and beauty. He did. He spared no expense in bringing that vision to life.
But the sources also mention wars of succession and his eventual imprisonment. That's a stark contrast to the image of the emperor who built the Taj Mahal.
Unfortunately, Shah Jahan's reign wasn't without its turmoil. As he got older, his sons began vying for power, and a bitter war of succession broke out.
Aurangzeb, the most ambitious of his sons, emerged victorious after a brutal conflict. He imprisoned his own father and claimed the throne.
It's a reminder that power can be fleeting and family dynamics can be complicated, especially when an empire is at stake.
That's very true.
So now we have Aurangzeb. He's a figure who often evokes mixed reactions. Some view him as a devout Muslim ruler who expanded the empire, while others criticize his policies for contributing to its eventual decline. What's your perspective on his reign?
Aurangzeb is a complex figure. There's no doubt he was a skilled military strategist and a devout Muslim. He did expand the Mughal Empire to its greatest geographical extent. However, his reign also saw the reimposition of the jizya tax and the destruction of some Hindu temples.
That seems like a step back from Akbar's policies of religious tolerance.
It was, and it did alienate certain segments of the population.
So his reign was marked by both expansion and internal tensions. This brings us to the question, did Aurangzeb's policies ultimately contribute to the Mughal decline, or were there other factors at play?
That's a debate that historians still have. His reign undoubtedly created challenges that the empire would face later on, but there were other contributing factors too.
It sounds like we've reached a pivotal moment in our Mughal journey. We've covered the rise of the dynasty, the challenges, the triumphs, and now we're at the cusp of its decline. We focus a lot on the emperors themselves, but what about the empire as a whole? How did they manage such a vast and diverse territory? What were the systems that held it all together?
That's a great question, and that's what we'll dive into next. We'll explore the fascinating administrative, social, and economic structures that made the Mughal Empire tick.
I'm ready to learn more.
It's a complex but fascinating story. Stay tuned. Now let's shift gears a little bit and move away from just focusing on the emperors and battles.
Okay.
We need to understand the systems that were put in place, the systems that kept the Mughal Empire running.
It's like looking under the hood, right?
Yeah.
See all the moving parts.
Exactly. And for those of you studying for exams like the UPSC, this is where things get really interesting. The administrative structure of the Mughal Empire is a key topic.
So let's get into it.
Okay, so the sources mention something called the Mansabdari system. Have you heard of that?
I have, but it sounds complicated. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. So the Mansabdari system was a unique feature of Mughal administration. It was really key to their success in governing such a vast empire. Imagine it like a modern-day corporation with ranks and responsibilities.
Okay, I see that.
So each official was assigned a rank called a mansab, which determined their salary, their status, their obligations to the empire.
So it created a clear hierarchy within the government. The army makes sense for maintaining order and control.
Exactly. A mansabdar's rank determined how many soldiers they had to maintain the amount of revenue they received and even their position in the court.
So a higher rank meant more responsibility and more privileges.
Exactly. It was a way to incentivize loyalty and service to the emperor.
Clever. But was this system in place from the very beginning, or did it evolve over time?
It evolved over time. Babur and Humayun had their own systems, but it was Akbar who really formalized and refined the Mansabdari system.
Akbar the innovator.
Hmm.
Okay, the sources also mentioned the Jagirdari system. Was that connected to the Mansabdari system in any way?
Yes, the two were closely linked. Think of it this way. Instead of paying salaries in cash, the Mughal emperors granted land revenues to their officials.
Oh, okay.
These land grants were called jagirs. So a mansabdar, depending on their rank, would be assigned a jagir from which they would collect revenue.
So it wasn't just a title or a position, it was tied to actual land and revenue collection. That must have been a powerful incentive.
It was, but it also created potential problems.
Like what?
Well, these jagirdars could become too powerful and challenge the emperor's authority.
It's always a balancing act, isn't it? Keeping powerful people in check.
It was a constant concern for the Mughal emperors. They had to balance the power of the jagirdars with the need for a strong central authority.
Which makes me think of Humayun's struggles. Maybe his challenges were partly due to not having a strong grip on this system. It highlights how important these administrative details were to the empire's success or failure.
Absolutely. It all ties together.
But let's shift gears again and talk about the economy. What were the main sources of revenue for the Mughal Empire? I'm guessing land revenue was a big one given the Jagirdari system we just discussed.
You're absolutely right. Land revenue was the primary source of income for the Mughal treasury. The Jagadari system was designed to efficiently collect a portion of agricultural produce as tax away. But the empire's wealth wasn't solely based on agriculture.
Right, the sources mention trade and commerce as well. India has always been a hub for trade connecting East and West. Did the Mughals capitalize on this?
They did. The Mughal Empire was strategically located along major trade routes. Cities like Agra, Lahore, Surat became bustling centers of commerce.
So merchants from all over the world would come to these cities.
They did, drawn by the riches of India. It was a win-win. The empire benefited from the taxes and revenue generated by trade, and the merchants had access to valuable goods and a relatively stable and secure environment.
What kind of goods were they trading? What were the hot commodities of the Mughal era?
India was known for its textiles. Silks, cotton spices were another major export, highly sought after in Europe. Then you have precious stones, diamonds, rubies, and finely crafted handicrafts, carpets, jewelry. The Mughal court was known for its extravagance, so this demand for luxury goods fueled a vibrant economy.
It's fascinating to think about these goods traveling across continents, connecting the Mughal Empire to the wider world. It challenges the idea that the Mughal Empire was isolated.
Right, they were active participants in global trade.
But we can't talk about an empire without talking about its people. What was society like under the Mughals? Was it a homogeneous society or was there diversity?
Mughal society was incredibly diverse, which is something that often gets overlooked. You had people from various religious backgrounds, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Jains, Christians, and people from different ethnicities and cultural backgrounds, reflecting the empire's vast geographical spread.
That makes sense given the empire's history of expansion and conquest. But how did they manage this diversity? Was there a system in place, or was it more about the emperor's personal approach?
It was a combination of both. There was a hierarchical structure with the emperor at the top, followed by the nobility. But there were also systems to accommodate different religious groups and ensure social harmony.
So it wasn't about imposing one culture or religion on everyone. They had to find ways to manage these differences and maintain stability. Can you give us some specific examples?
Sure, Akbar, known for his religious tolerance, appointed people from different religious backgrounds to key positions in his administration. He encouraged interfaith dialogue and even participated in discussions with religious scholars from different traditions.
It's interesting how these policies of religious tolerance seem to have a direct impact on the stability and prosperity of the empire.
It wasn't just about being nice. It was a strategic approach to governance.
But let's not forget the Mughal Empire wasn't just about administration and economics. They were also great patrons of art, architecture, and literature.
Oh,
This is where I think even those who aren't studying for exams can get excited about the Mughals.
absolutely. The Mughal era produced some of India's most iconic architectural marvels and exquisite works of art. It's a legacy we can all appreciate.
Right, when we think of the Mughals' images of the Taj Mahal, the Red Fort, Fatehpur Sikri immediately come to mind. These are more than just buildings. They're works of art, each with its own story.
And what's fascinating is how these structures reflect the personalities and ambitions of the emperors who built them. The Taj Mahal, for example, is a testament to Shah Jahan's love for his wife, Mumtaz Mahal.
It's a monument that speaks to the power of human emotion and the enduring beauty of art. But the Mughals weren't just great builders, right? What about their patronage of painting and literature?
Mughal painting is a unique blend of Persian and Indian styles. The emperors commissioned manuscripts, miniature paintings, and portraits that showcase the talent of artists from across the empire. These paintings offer a glimpse into court life, battles, hunting scenes, even intimate moments.
And what about literature? What languages were used? What kind of works were produced during this period? It seems like the Mughal Empire was a melting pot, not just of cultures, but of languages and literary traditions as well.
You're right, Persian was the official language of the court, but Urdu, Hindi, and various regional languages flourished. This led to a rich literary output, with works ranging from historical chronicles and biographies to poetry and religious texts.
Can you give us some examples of famous works or authors that we should know about?
Of course. Akbar's court historian Abul Fazl wrote the Akbarnama, a comprehensive account of Akbar's reign. Jahangir wrote his autobiography, the Tazuki Jahangiri, which provides insights into his personality and reign. And then there are the works of Sufi poets and Bhakti saints who enrich the landscape with their devotional verses and philosophical insights. Their works transcended religious boundaries and still resonate today.
It's amazing how much cultural richness emerged from this period. It's a treasure trove of art, architecture, literature just waiting to be explored.
It is.
But as we know, empires don't last forever. What led to the decline of this once mighty empire? Was it a sudden collapse or a slow unraveling over time?
The decline of the Mughal Empire was a gradual process, a culmination of various factors that chipped away at its power and stability. It's a complex story with internal and external pressures. It requires looking beyond simple explanations.
The sources mention internal conflicts, economic decline, the rise of regional powers, and foreign invasions. Were these all contributing factors?
Absolutely. Internally, there were power struggles among the Mughal princes, weak rulers who lacked the vision of their predecessors, and a decline in the efficiency of the administration. The systems that once held the empire together began to weaken.
So the empire was weakening from within, making it susceptible to external pressures. It's a classic pattern in history.
It is. And as the Mughal Empire weakened, regional powers like the Marathas and the Sikhs, sensing opportunity, began to assert their independence and challenge Mughal authority.
And then there were foreign invasions, too.
Yes, the invasion of Nadir Shah from Persia in 1739 was a devastating blow. He sacked Delhi, looted the Mughal treasury, and carried away vast wealth, including the famous Peacock Throne. It was a symbolic humiliation and a tangible loss of resources that further weakened the Mughal state.
It's almost tragic to see how an empire that had reached such heights could fall so dramatically.
It reminds us that power is never permanent. Even the mightiest empires can crumble under the weight of internal weaknesses and external pressures. The Mughal Empire, despite its decline, left an indelible mark on India's history, culture, and identity.
It's been an incredible journey exploring the world of the Mughals. We've covered their rise, their systems of governance, their cultural contributions, and the factors that led to their decline. But what does it all mean? Why should we care about the Mughals today? What can we learn from their story? That's what we'll explore in our final segment, so stay with us. So we've explored the rise and fall of the Mughal Empire, looked at their systems of governance, and marveled at their cultural contributions. But as we wrap up, I keep thinking, what's the lasting impact? Why should we in the 21st century care about an empire that faded centuries ago?
That's a great question, and it's something that historians and scholars are still trying to understand. The Mughal Empire, despite its flaws, left a deep legacy, a legacy woven into the very fabric of modern India.
And it's a legacy that goes way beyond textbooks and exam syllabi.
Right. It's something that's alive in the art, the architecture, the language, even the cuisine that we experience today.
It's true, and that's something I really want to emphasize for our listeners, especially those preparing for exams like the UPSC. It's not enough to just memorize dates and names. You need to connect it to the present.
Yeah.
How did their rules shape the India we know today? What were their lasting contributions? And what were the challenges they left behind?
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots. For example, the Mughal administrative system, with its emphasis on centralization and hierarchy, influenced the development of later administrative systems in India. And their policies on religious tolerance, particularly those of Akbar, are still relevant in discussions about pluralism and secularism in modern India.
It's like those ripples in a pond. The actions of these emperors centuries ago were still creating ripples that we feel today.
That's a great way to put it.
And for our listeners who might not be taking the UPSC, what's the one key takeaway from all of this?
I think it's the appreciation for the complexities of history. The Mughal Empire wasn't just this monolithic entity. It was a dynamic period with ambitious rulers, complex social structures, cultural exchanges, constant change. It reminds us that history isn't just about memorizing facts. It's about understanding the forces that shape societies and the enduring legacies of the past.
It also reminds us that the stories of these emperors and empires aren't just confined to history books. They're reflected in the buildings we see, the food we eat, the languages we speak. It's all connected.
Exactly. Think about the Mughal influence on architecture. The Taj Mahal, the Red Fort, Fatehpur Sikri. These aren't just tourist attractions. They're symbols of a rich cultural heritage. And even beyond these grand structures, you can see Mughal architectural elements in mosques, tombs, even private homes all across India.
It makes you realize how much history is alive all around us, often hiding in plain sight. We just need to look for it. But before we wrap up, I have a thought-provoking question for our listeners.
Okay, I like those.
If you could travel back in time to the Mughal era, what would you be most curious to see or experience?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Would it be the grandeur of the Mughal court with its elaborate ceremonies and feasts? Or maybe a glimpse into the bustling marketplaces of Agra filled with goods from all over the world? Maybe the artistic workshops of Lahore where they crafted those exquisite textiles and jewelry and miniature paintings?
Or maybe you'd be more interested in the daily life of everyday people, understanding their joys, their struggles, how they lived in this complex society.
So many possibilities.
It's a question that makes us use our imaginations, step into the past, and connect with the human stories behind the historical facts. That's what makes history so fascinating. It's about people, their dreams, their ambitions, the legacies they leave behind.
Well said. And it's a journey of exploration that never really ends. There's always more to discover, more to learn, more to question.
That's so true. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Mughal Empire. We hope you found it informative, engaging, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future deep dives. Until next time, keep exploring.